Hi there, welcome back. When I wrote my book, Lighting the Blue Flame, a few years ago, was obviously about trying to help kids at school with mental health. The reason I'm kind of talking about this here isn't so much about trying to plug the book, which obviously would be great if people bought it, but essentially it's also about understanding how I think we need to challenge more of the status quo out in terms of health, politicians, and at school level, right? Like when I was starting the book, wasn't in my original plan. Originally, what happened was I was working in healthcare. I was part of seeing board reports as an executive HR person in a role there, and basically as part of a hospital and a lot of satellite hospitals, I was able to see a lot of data and information on what we were offering as a service to the community. The things that shocked me a lot were how young people were on medication for anxiety, suicide prevention stuff, and a lot of interventions in that space. And we're talking 10, 12-year olds. So as part of that, I started really looking into, with my police background, I was also seeing that a lot of these kids also had interactions with the police. So obviously we're still working with youth liaison officers and stuff like that in the community. So I had a fair bit of a grasp of the bigger picture of how these kids, if they've had trauma in their lives, they end up not going to school, or they get bullied at school or picked on because their head's not in the game for a number of reasons. And there's a lot of psychology that obviously goes with that. Their parents tend to be from a lower socioeconomic background. So there's all these risk factors that kind of add to the kid then leaving school early, falling in with the wrong crowd. And a lot of people know this narrative. So effectively for me, it was about looking and seeing what we could do at an earlier time in the kid's life, usually at that really early school age, where we'd want to get involved, help the schools, help the child, look at the kids that are at risk, and putting things in place that what I like to call vital behaviour in terms of really good routines at school, having kids interact and talking about problems, talking about how to fix their problems, help them with resilience in a much more, controlled way run by the school. So you would have thought, me bringing those ideas, suggestions. I did trial that at a few schools in the community when I was there, go to the principals directly. We ran some sessions, got some really good feedback, interacted with the police. They had some really good feedback. And as a crisscross um, groups, if you like, so police, schools, and obviously the health areas, it was helpful to kind of interact and do that. And you would have thought that, taking it then to the education department would be something that they would embrace. I tried to do that, didn't happen. Didn't want a bar of it. Basically told me, you're not an educator. If you haven't got any proof that this stuff would work, then we don't know about it. Obviously, I was like, well, if you gave me a chance to try and prove that it works, I could get in the school, run the sessions, and then we do a like for like and comparison and do all the rest of the stuff that you would for research. Didn't want to be involved, and essentially just fell on deaf ears. Tried other different ways. Politicians were the same, trying to look for funding for it. Politicians, same. They're not subject matter experts on this stuff. So, we put so much emphasis on the politicians, coming up with solutions. They're just good at arguing and having their own agendas, and they just want to point score, and they aren't necessarily good at the problem solving piece of what is mental health, what is health in general. They have an overview of stuff, but they're not subject matter experts. It's like Greta Thunberg really telling us about, climate change when there's professors of environmental stuff that know way more than her, right? So essentially, we don't often look at and challenge this whole process. So that's kind of where the book came up, right? The book's written about a kid gets bullied at school, ends up committing suicide, taking his own life, and then really focusing on all the things that have contributed to that. The bully themselves, the bully's been bullied at home, the bully then bullies him. People laugh about it and think it's funny. People watching it don't do anything. Teachers watching it, trying to do stuff, but then, parents are quite wealthy, all that sort of stuff, and we don't really want to deal with it. So all this stuff culminates in this kid, unfortunately taking his own life. And then essentially try to then use that school program that I mentioned and bringing it into the story, and then working with the school in a proactive way, putting the ideas forward, and then showing how we can actually do those vital behaviour and incorporate it into school days, and really building on that to show different ways of doing things, because I don't think we do this well enough. We focus one-on-one when it comes to counselling. There needs to be a social aspect to it, and some of it can be so much more proactive. It's harder to fix someone than it is to prevent them from being harmed in a bad way, right? We're all going to go through some stuff as human beings, but really, really focusing on bringing very proactive stuff into the schooling environment, educating parents. I think there's multiple levels we can do, and it's certainly not going to come from any politician telling us how to do it, because that's not what they're great at, let's be honest. So, if you think it's worthwhile, certainly check out the book. It's on Amazon. As I said, Lighting the Blue Flame by Clint Adams. That's what it looks like. It is on Amazon. Have a look. You can read a few chapters for free in there, just to give you some insight around whether it's something that you want to continue to read. Thank you for your time. Cheers.